my community. I am so excited. It is Regina Rossi Lamoth for Here for You Connections and Resources. And we are ready to have week number 2, Wholehearted Wednesday, with my new friend. And I'm so excited to introduce you to Janice Cruz, everybody. So say, hey, Janice.
Hi, everyone.
Awesome. So Janice and I met at this really extraordinary 3-day event that happened a couple of weeks ago. And as I told you last week, I'm bringing on somebody every week that I met there that I felt seriously like connected to my heart, connected to my soul. That's why I love it's Wednesday. And I feel like she's my whole heart. We kind of touched base yesterday. And this episode is really going to get raw and real. We are both moms. We both have children that are 1.5 years apart. Janice's daughter is 4. For you guys, you know, Lexi is 5.5. Janice is a single mom at the moment, although she has like great, time with dad who's able to take care of her daughter as well. And you know that Josh and I are married. So we're going to talk about what does that really look like? Like, is it as difficult for Janice as it is for me? Janice and I had some deep conversations about relationships. So we're going to talk about what matters to us, what we're committed to ourselves, to our children, and for the world. So before we get into all of that and go deep, I want to read this extraordinary bio about my friend. So here we are with Janice. With over 9 years of experience in self-development and personal growth, Janice Cruz is creating a company that leads events teaching people how to love themselves, how to find their purpose, and how to create exceptional joy in their lives. She is obtaining her graduate certificate in executive leadership coaching at Lewis University and working towards her ACC certification with the International Coaching Federation, ICF. She works as a Scrum Master and Agile coach for a marketing technology company. She grew up in a high-crime, low-income community with limited access to enrichment programs. And as a result, she has dedicated part of her work to being in support of formerly incarcerated women, as well as those indirectly impacted by the criminal justice system. She also works with people dealing with critical and terminal illness to teach hope and resilience in the face of extreme circumstances. She hosts the Self-Care, Self-Love Science with Janice Cruz podcast, where she shares her journey and a methodical approach for loving yourself. And I love this, guys, because I asked Janice to send me her bio. And we met last weekend, 2 weeks ago, but we really were immersed in the work and didn't get to really learn about a lot about each other. We both knew we were coaches. We both are passionate about women and children and empowerment and like really making an impact in the world, but didn't really know. And I don't think Janice knew. Self-love and self-care is my jam. Like that is like the whole point, right? And the way it's worded is incredible. And I was just so moved by you sharing with me yesterday when we kind of were touching base about how you grew up. We grew up very differently. And, no matter where you grow up, there are definitely things that are different, but it's amazing from a human experience and from a woman experience, how we tend to still self-sabotage, really have a lot of negative thoughts, and are really hard on ourselves. And so a lot of times we're like, well, because you grew up here or you grew up this way, it must be different for you. But yesterday we really kind of spoke about how similar we are inside of very differences. But I love what you're doing. I'm excited for you to be here. So I want to just dive right in, guys, and know that, whoever's watching, feel free to comment. I think the comments are not going to be showing up here exactly, but we'll be reaching back to you. So really what we spoke about yesterday versus today, I'm in this low energy space. So for you guys to know, our family is leaving for an extraordinary, some self-care time off for an amazing opportunity to see my brother-in-law and my now almost soon-to-be sister-in-law get married in a destination wedding. And it's exciting. It's super, super exciting. But like, I don't know about you, I'm like feeling way low energy. And I said to Josh before we left, like, I literally felt like I wanted to cry. Like, I just feel like I'm in this blah, like, I should be like pumped. And I'm just really like, have this high energy anxiety. That's really, I said to Janice, I don't know what I'm going to talk about, but that's what I want to talk about. Because what I want people to know is, perception is everything. And although we're on here and we got our makeup on, hers much better than mine, and being real, the bottom line is, that's what I'm dealing with. And I'm clear for myself from a lot of the work that we've done, this is not like my energy. Like, it is my energy. I know where I didn't take my self-care today, where I didn't take the self-love, and then added that in as soon as I did. But a lot of it is not mine that I haven't managed. So saying that to you, Janice, what do you hear? And what, I'd love to get your input on that.
Thank you so much for having me. When I walked in the room and I saw you, you had this radiant energy, and I was like, my people, like happiness everywhere is so beautiful. So I'm really excited. What you just said right now about the energy you're in. Before I started my self-love journey, for me, like, I was in a super depressed, like really unhappy space. And I looked at self-love as like unattainable, because I was like, it's impossible to be happy every single day. So I had this assumption that you were just going to be on a high and joyous and excited every day of life. You weren't going to have bad days. Life was just always going your way. And then when I got there, there was like this really huge upswing of happiness and joy. And I was like, oh my gosh, can you feel it? And I was like spreading it everywhere. And when I had my first crash, it was like, it caught me off guard. I couldn't believe it happened, because I just thought, how is this possible? I love myself. The universe is now in my favor. Everything's supposed to go well. And the truth is, you just have a better baseline that you're going to fall back onto. So it's like when you're in the kind of always depressed state, you feel that tomorrow's going to be bad. The next day is going to be bad. The next day, from the self-love place, when that becomes your new norm, on your bad days, like, you let yourself feel it because your body needs to go through it. But then part of you is like, well, there's going to be good days too. Like, you have an equal chance in the future, statistically speaking, of having a good day or a bad day. So I look at it now where on the days that I'm down, I'm like, oh, my soul wants to go to the car wash today, and I kind of indulge in that feeling of like, oh my gosh, life is crazy. And I lay on the couch and I do this dramatic, fall apart. And then I'm like, okay, tomorrow I'll get back to it. Or maybe the next day if it's a really bad day, so it still exists. You'll still have days where you feel horrible and you don't want to pick yourself up, but the happiness is just sitting there waiting. It's almost like you walk in the mirror and your cheerleader in your brain is like, you ready to get back to it? And you're either like, no, or all right, fine. Let's do something to make myself feel beautiful and happy. And,
I love it.
Joy.
You know what? It came to me because as I'm like talking to you and listening, when I said like the energy isn't mine, it's really interesting because I've been on a really, like, since that event 2 weeks ago, it really has expanded me, expanded my heart. It's expanded my commitment. It's expanded my stand. And, especially about women and working with children. So I was on that up. And then I had my birthday and I was like, yeah. And then so just feeling all of that. And interesting enough, as all of that's happening, as you're like stepping into this, like I like to say, taking off another layer, right? Just another layer and kind of coming out of this cocoon, because I've got all of these visions and thoughts. I've got these interviews with you and podcasts and, all of these ideas, and they're all swirling and, writing them down and organizing them as all this is happening. Some of the most incredible people who I love more than anything in the world are really dealing with some really tough situations, right? We were just talking about relationships. What is it like to be in a relationship, be committed to somebody and then find out, that relationship wasn't exactly what it what it seems like. Somebody in the relationship, cheated, somebody just woke up one day and was just like, I don't want to be in it anymore. I've got people around me that are having these situations in friendships that are just like, I'm realizing that, this person's mad at me and they said a whole bunch of stuff to me and I never saw myself that way. And now I don't know how to communicate that. That's all kind of happened in, these past couple of weeks. And for me, self-care and self-love is knowing that because we're both coaches, we both work with people, and plus we love our family and our friends, it's so important that when all of that is, when I choose to have those conversations, if it's professional or personal, it's so important to make sure that I take care of myself afterward, because that energy, I'm here, like things are good on my end, but the people who I love and that I'm committed to and I care about are hurting. And so that kind of seeps into, my skin and into my soul and into my heart. And then I wonder why I'm just sort of low, why I'm, now it's time to pack and I'm getting anxious and I'm getting and I'm like, what is this coming from? And I'm grateful that I'm in a marriage with someone who's committed to this work, because exactly what you said, the drama, that's why her and I are friends. I just came into the room and I was like, Josh, I'm in and I flopped on the bed and I was just like, I can't back. I'm like, I can't go away. I just want to sleep. And he's like, okay. He's just like, lay down. You need to shut your eyes. You need to breathe. You need to take care of yourself. It's all good. And consider, because he knows what's happening, that a lot of this isn't yours. And the most important thing for you right now is to take care of yourself. And with that, he went and took care of Lexi and picked her up and kept her out of the house for an extra hour so that I could sleep for an hour, took a shower, and really, like you said, got myself energized. So that's what I wanted to kind of share out there with people, that, a lot of times we get in our car, we're going food shopping, we're going to, pick something up at the store, we walk into the drugstore and we're one way, go to the drugstore, get what I've got to get. And then you get in your car and you get home and then in an instant, all of a sudden it drops and you wonder how many times is this your energy or is it somebody else's? And I work a lot with my clients to talk about that. Is it really yours?
Yeah, I love this conversation so much because my podcast about self-love science is there. I like to look at a lot of psychology and theory. And so one of the things I recognized, so after I had done all the work and I got to my neutral baseline, I had done forgiveness work, gratitude work, and I came to a neutral state of emptiness, as in I was no longer held down by emotions of things that have happened to me.
Nice.
I had this really interesting experience. I was super happy sitting at the table. I was doing a little miniature. I like to build little miniature houses, and I'm sitting there just so happy. And then someone walks in the room, and before I look up, I felt whatever they were feeling. The first person walked in and it was anger, had a bad day at work, had a situation. And I remember feeling that anger. They left and I went back to neutral. And then the next person walks in. They were sad. They had something happen. And I just totally felt that sadness. I ingested it. They left. They were neutral. The next person come in, before I turned around, I felt the joyous energy. And I remember being like, what is that? What part of intelligent design let me feel what everybody else is feeling? So I looked at it emotions are part of survival mechanism. It's how being able to read people's facial expressions lets us know, is that a friend or a foe? But also the same way, I always use this example of a gazelle grazing, and then they can feel that there's a predator, a lion coming up. There's something energetically happening before they even hear that predator coming. And I think people are built with the exact same thing. And then some of us allow ourselves to be more receptive to it, or we acknowledge that it's not our own energy, that we're taking it on. Certain conversations, gossip conversations, I realize I start getting migraines, even if I'm the one that started it or I'm just engaged in it. My energy drops. I start feeling physical illness with it. And I'm in the practice right now of what I call 1 inch of space. imagining I have this shield so that I can receive what somebody else is going through. They can share with me. They can freely speak, without me having judgment, but without me taking it on as my own. And sometimes, when you were talking about the relationships, and I had a friend who was going through this, relationship thing, and it was so devastating that I cried. I could just feel the pain of it. And in that example, I felt like it was appropriate for me to share in that pain because of the nature of our relationship. And I said, I could take some of this and I can go, dispose of that energy through my own healing practices. And then in other cases, like if people want to throw anger at you, they're angry and they've got this energy and they want to hand it off. Like they're giving you an option. Do you receive my anger? Do you receive my joy? And you have the option to say yes or no. That's why some people, like one person that I know, they'll go out to, restaurants, and like, let's say they get a bad attitude from a server or something. It's almost like it doesn't register. And I remember saying, why don't you respond to that? And they were like, it's a choice. Like she's having a bad day, not me. And I always thought that was fascinating that you had the ability to do it, because I didn't. For me, emotions were like flying through me like that scene in Ghost, where like all the, and so the practices of just getting rid of it, like you did, throwing yourself, on the bed and saying, here, husband, like take care of these parts so that I can cleanse, or meditation. But like, how do you prevent yourself from taking it on? Like you need to be available as a coach to people. But then other people that, you're going to make the decision, I don't need to take on your things. If there's, toxic environments, work or home life, you can choose to let yourself just feel a different emotion or let the wave pass and just say, oh, that's interesting. I'm having the experience of that anger, but it's not mine. And knowing that it's just going to like go back off. And I'd like to send mine into the universe, like off into the ether.
Yeah, that's, and so what what we're saying here is definitely Janice has done the work, continues to do the work, I do the work. So this isn't like sort of like, as we're talking here, a simple thing. It's a practice, right? Like going to the gym, whatever you need to do, it's a practice. So I really appreciate that. And it, number one, starts with awareness. I'm going to now segue that into like, listen, we're moms. So I just met her 4.5-year-old. Our 4.5-year-old met my 5.5-year-old, and mom life. Let's get right into it. We're mothers, and when we're talking about energy, our kids, and your daughter, like particularly, like reminds me so much of me, right? She was just like, hi, and telling me all about herself. So tons of energy, very social, So let's get into like motherhood, children's energy. How do you manage your energy? Do you notice when you take on your child's energy, right? So let's dive into that a little bit. Is there anything that you can share, like using as a real example? Because I know you're home with your daughter.
Yeah, so I'm home with my daughter all day. She's not in daycare. It's just the two of us. So there's like a constant interaction all throughout the day. There's interruption. I work a full-time job and I lead meetings for 3 different teams. So there's some weeks where I'm in 30 hours of meetings a week, and in my 10 minutes between calls, I'm making her a sandwich or whatever, like entertaining her. And so we talked a little bit about, I don't remember if we got into the discussion about like what we learned. Nobody taught me self-love. I had wonderful parents, I had a great childhood. But people weren't healing from their things. So I took on reactive anger. Like the realness of being a mom is my patience is super steady. And then if I'm in the middle of doing something, I talked about this with my therapist. She was like, pay attention. How far in advance can you recognize the sign that you're about to have reactive anger? That thought changed my life, because I realized it was when I was busy. If I was trying to do some work or in the middle of like homework, I was like, oh, she'll start talking. She'll need something, just like a glass of water, show me a toy, whatever. And I'll say, hold on a second. And I'll do language and then she'll keep going. And eventually I'm like, hold on a second, I'm in a meeting or whatever. And then I have the guilt. So the tool was recognize it in advance. The second part was prioritize which specific things I was going to be doing where she could understand When mommy says I'm busy, she'll know, okay, I'll be right back. If I'm on my phone scrolling through social media, that can easily get interrupted. I won't allow that to take over. If whatever she needs, I'll put my phone down. If I'm just like doing laundry, if I'm cleaning, unless there's something that could burn, I'll stop and talk to her. That decreased the amount of times that I was truly unavailable. Like if I was leading a meeting and I'm on camera and I'm speaking, I'm sharing my screen. Once I cut out all the other things that were just irrelevant, I'm trying to read a book. If she wants to talk, I'll put the book down because that's not urgent. Then what happened after I implemented that practice, if I said, all right, sweetheart, I'll be with you in just a few minutes, go entertain yourself. I gave her like a structure, a system. Now she'll do it. Sometimes she'll still like, oh, but this thing is real cool. And I'll put it on mute. I learned also to, people at work have to understand that I am a parent. And I say this thing of, it's so cute when somebody shows their cat or their dog on camera. Everybody loves that interruption. But when it's a kid, there's this like energy in the air of,
yes,
it's different. And I'm like, okay, your cat's cute. Like, show me your cats, show me your dogs, show me your babies. Somebody's kid came in and interrupted, and I just made like a big joke out of it. And I was like, you see how funny it is when things like this happen. So there's a lot of work in that area. And then the reactive anger was leading to guilt. And I was like, okay, in advance of the guilt, what can I do with this energy? And I was like, okay, let me talk to my daughter about, forgiveness. If I do have reactive anger, I'm like, it's not okay for anybody to talk to you like that, not even mommy.
yes.
I taught her to tell me the energy exchange we were just talking about. I said, if mommy's, acting up, that's me with anger in my body, and I'm trying to put it in your body. And you have to tell me, mommy, no. And then I said, if I don't listen, then you say, mommy, you promised you'd listen. I taught her my perfect little scripts of how my brain works. And that's exactly what she does. Like if I get upset, like I'm like a rage cleaner. I like to clean and I'm like, oh, look at this mess. And she'll go, mommy, you're trying to put your anger in my body. And I'm like, oh, like it's so effective. And then she'll be like, do you want to like punch this pillow? I did like a workshop with emotional work. And they're like, you got to like get it out. You got to punch a pillow or something. So we just put tools in place. And when I tell you that one day before I implemented that, the stress in my life and the complete different energy, my daughter and I do not fight. We do not get into any issues whatsoever. We both have we'll both get upset, right? She just picked up video games. So now she's got I can't beat the level. This is dumb. But we both have where we can sit and use the right language on each other so that we get, okay, this is not about you. This is not about me. And even at 4 years old,
that's right.
And she educates me. It helps me be a better parent to her.
This is beautiful because this is sort of goes with what Erin and I were talking about last week. This is my favorite part of the kind of what pisses you off, right? Kind of thing, which was, I so want the education system to shift, right? What has worked, but we know that right now in this time, there's so many systems that have been in place that are just no longer working. They're just not working as well as we'd like them to anymore. And so many of them are broken. And so, me being older than you and knowing as a social worker that you used to have these extraordinary programs in school in place, and then they've let them go. So it's like a checkoff box where a kid goes to school and they have someone like you come in and speak to 300 kids, right? And then you have this conversation and you pray one of them heard it, right? Rather than implementing it, we are the teachers. They are our teachers, and thank goodness that we have chosen to take these tools and these programs and take this in practice into our life. Nothing against our parents, but it just really wasn't accessible and available. And if it was so taboo, right? We've broken sort of that taboo, piece of it. It still might be culturally maybe somewhere for people, but really it's much more easily accessible and much more like, you and I are on the same page, and there was a ton of people in, that weekend where we were all on the same page. So I do the same thing with my daughter. Josh and I have on the refrigerator like 55, words and phrases to like work with, speaking positive in ways that you can change your language to work with your child. And I got taught by this amazing, extraordinary woman, Julie Wheeler, who is an incredible coach. And she had shared in one of her, podcasts about using, when you're upset. She teaches her children, and I taught my daughter, when I'm upset like that, we use like putting your anger, putting that anger energy. Now I'm going to add that to it as an extra tool. My daughter now turns around and says to me, Mommy, when I'm really, really upset, she'll go, Mommy, even like she'll grab me and she'll go, Mommy, how do you need to be loved?
Oh,
And it stops. People, Julie Wheeler, Julie, if you're listening, I love you. Like that changed my world. In tears sometimes when, because sometimes I'm really just beyond, because I'm just running around and doing a ton of stuff. So we're like, what? Yeah. And then she'll be like, how do you need to be loved? And I'm just like, right. Just hearing that, right? You went,
yeah.
We do that with each other. And then, I have my coach, and I'm in my group coaching program because I'm always committed to like growing and developing. And so she's my business coach, and, we deal with life issues. And so I've got this great toolbox of energy management tools. And so I have it in my schedule, like every morning, specific energy management tools that I use. And my daughter is very much well trained of how we get up, like you said, a little bit of structure, a little bit of schedule. And now it's like, we get up, she has her vitamin, we come downstairs, she has breakfast, Mommy has her journal, and I do my energy management work. She used to watch TV. Now it's her journal. And if I don't do it, because sometimes, that happens, and I start snapping, like, hurry up, time to get ready for school. We're going to be late. She's like, Mommy, you missed your energy management work. And it's, and this is why I say this and why I want to talk about real, what's really happening. Listen, guys, we're giving you the best part of our, relationships with our kids because we're using these tools in our lives. Is it perfect? For me, it's still a big practice. It's a practice that's happening over and over and over again. And there are many times that, it doesn't work because I haven't taken care of myself and I haven't done that work. But the fact is that at that young age, and that's why I think it's really important, we think, well, they won't understand. But they do. They understand so much more than we can possibly imagine. And when we can make this part of their everyday life, it's so amazing. So I just am super, grateful for that. And I think it's really important that we can, say, hey, there are things that we can do to help you with your kids be able to make this a family kind of thing. And it takes, there's good days, bad days. She didn't want to leave the house. She didn't want to say goodbye to the cat. We're leaving and we needed to go. I was like, Mommy's got 9 o'clock, She's just like, breathe, Mommy. Do you need love? I was like, I do. And I need, but it changes everything. Just that statement just changes everything. So I'm really, now I've got that extra one, right? About the anger one, more of the anger one. I love that, to be able to say that that's Mommy trying to put your anger out. If I'm yelling at you on you, or if I'm Daddy or at somebody. And I love that she'll be able to say no, you're trying to do that. You're trying to place your anger on me. And that will shift so much. So I love that conversation.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm going to bring that into my life. I'm so happy that you shared that with me. And I'm so excited to tell my daughter that, and implement some new language in there. Children are so fascinating. I learned forgiveness work with my daughter because I'd have anger and I'd feel that urge to hold on, and she'd be in her room upset. And I'm like, forgive her. You need to go apologize. It's okay. Cause you feel that pride. And I'm like, this is a baby, you can go in there and she's going to be so happy to hear, this apology from you. Apologizing is not something that I had a skill set of doing before, right? Like when it came to relationships, that wasn't my strength. But with my relationship with my child, it's so much easier for me to let go of any issues that I have. And I'm super excited about the things that, I have a wonderful, loving mother. I'm so grateful. I got hugs and kisses. Even to this day, I was like sick back in December, and I went to my mom's. I was like, can I just sleep on your couch? Like, I just want to be around you, and she did her best, and there were things that she didn't have the tools to heal. She's pretty spiritual now, and we talk about metaphysical things. And I'm so grateful for being this person now, that I healed when I did, that my daughter gets this version of me, and that she's going to go and she's going to grow with some amazing tools and learn how to love herself from day one. And I hope that if she chooses, if that's, where life takes her to become a parent, that she gets to be an even better, parent, and say, here's what my mom got wrong and here's what she got right.
Yeah.
And take that into the world and like be this amazing person. I was committed to raising an independent woman, right?
Yep.
And so that means I have a 4-year-old who is very independent and lets me know. And so I look at it the way that I was telling my sister this. I was like, you have to look at how when a baby lion, roars at his dad, and the lion pretends to be hurt. It's not that he's really hurt. It's just he's practicing. The baby's practicing how to be in the world. And the parent is showing this is the right response to it. So when kids get angry at us, or they just freely feel their emotions. So if they feel anger or sadness or whatever, they let it out and we react to that. But in reality, they're practicing, when I feel anger, what do I do? Our response should be neutral, right? As best as we can. And so I told that to my sister. I was like, think of her like a baby lion. She's practicing. You have to teach her in the world, this is how you can behave. You respond with a more appropriate response than what she's doing, which is like, throwing the tantrum. You respond with more like ease. And she loved that, because then she took it and she's like, I'm going to teach her how to be tough. And she took it like I'm raising a baby lion. So, child psychology is fascinating. They're like an exact reflection of us. They're completely unique, but then they spit it right back at you. If you have any way of being, they're going to show it back to you. And I always stop and I'm like, oh, if she just said that, that means I must be saying that. And she's picking it up. And
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things, my mom has passed for over 9 years now. And I remember her saying, may you have one just like you. And, you always the mind would go, she's being wise, and she's just like, trying to be like, yeah, all the bad things. But I really get it. Like, I really, really get it now. Like, it's true. Like, you'll see, you're going to have, I think human beings are fascinating, right? It's just like, in one of the courses I took, they described human being like as facets on a diamond. If you look at a diamond, there's so many facets on a diamond, and so your child is that every single facet, or, when somebody is angry at you, then it's, what are you reflecting? Like, where are you not healed in that, space of that? If that joy, right, then you're that reflection of, where is that joy in your life? You get a kid, you get all of that with you. And then you've got all the stuff like, it's interesting. I'm interested for you to share, you're really committed about working with women who are, were previously incarcerated. You grew up, listening, like, here's the stereotype, listening that could be like, well, Janice, man, you grew up in a really low income, tough neighborhood. And like, a lot of people might not feel like they'll be able to get out of that. Right. But you're like, you're out of it. Right. Mm-hmm. So why don't you share a little bit about like that experience of you growing up and, again, I know everything has been a taught lesson, and there's probably this pivotal moment in your life when you took your first course, like when you did your first thing. So let's just share with the audience a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I grew up like where I was born. There was like high gang related crimes. My father's formerly incarcerated. All of my uncles are formerly incarcerated, a few of my cousins, wives. I grew up in a family where many of the people were either directly impacted, as in they themselves have been incarcerated, or indirectly impacted as myself, somebody who is a family member to somebody who's incarcerated. So many things. My dad, when he came out, he was like, we are done with this life. He moved us away. We came to Florida. But my family, you know, we were the people that came from that environment, and we moved environments. And so like our surroundings were different. You know, the crime wasn't prevalent here. But we were still learned from that environment. I learned some really amazing things. So the very first lesson that I would like to give to people about coming from that type of environment is that I learned how good people were. And they are not this singular experience. In my family, so many people go to jail. We make jokes about it. We were having a birthday party for my dad a couple of years ago. I threw him a surprise party, and we were like, where's my aunt? And they're like, she just got arrested because some woman attacked her at the gas station. And we're like, she's already older, right? Like, she's not like a fighter, you know, something happened. Then we all start joking, who went to jail? I was like, even I went to jail when I was 15. I went to the juvenile assessment center. Like, it was like my badge of making jokes, you know, of having, when you come from that type of environment, there's a lot that is normalized. Nobody talks about self-love because nobody learned how to do it. But I also learned about the goodness in people because I grew up with these people, and then they'd go away and they'd come back, and you're so excited to see them. And, you know, sometimes they're, you know, remorseful or not. And you just learn all these ways of people, but you also see like how their wives are impacted, which is where I existed, like the wives, the children, seeing that people's lives are changed, seeing people who are falsely convicted, seeing people who are spending way more time than they should, and then seeing people that like, yes, you did that and you needed to go there. My dad, when he got out, like he was like, he made us the most straight edge kids you can imagine. Like, I did not have a drink till I was 21. He was like, nope, we are straight edge. We follow the law. We don't break any rules. And he's so like, just chill right now. But you also bring on this belief of a lack of worth, because in those areas, you don't have access to hardly anything. I remember I was in like elementary school, and they came from this ballet school and they were picking 2 kids out of the school to have like a free opportunity to go dance ballet. And so my mom used to send me to everything. And I have this like dream of like, I could have been a ballerina, and I didn't get selected because there was like a boy in my class. But we didn't have stuff like that. We were just kids going outside. There was this experience of like, you hear gunshots outside, and it's just like normal. It's like part of life. You learn that that's the way things are. You learn that opportunities are scarce. So even over here, again, completely different life. I went to college, you know, first person in my family to go to college. I have one other cousin who also graduated, but it took me a long time to undo the thinking of like the ghetto mentality, you know, of thinking that
what's that pivotal moment? Where was that pivotal moment when that happened? I mean, your dad sounds rare. Listen, I was a foster care worker. I removed kids from homes in the 5 boroughs of New York City, you know, when I graduated with my bachelor's degree in my 20s. You don't hear many people who are incarcerated coming out and really making that kind of shift and providing that opportunity the way you're saying. So what do you think with your dad? You know, what do you think? Where's that pivotal shift for you?
Yeah, when we came down here, he served a little bit of time. He didn't have like a long-term sentence, and he had, I don't remember what they call it, like a halfway house or something, where he would come out to work and kind of like sleep over in jail. So as soon as he got out, like he was just like, this is it. Like, we're not living this life anymore. And my experience of him as a human being is we watched all our shows together. We ate dinner together. He didn't let anybody babysit us. Like my dad was like, we are a family unit. We do all of our things as a family. So that's what my experience was. And I have no memory of like this jail time because again, it was kind of like he was sleeping over. So I was too young. And then we came over here and my life was different besides, you know, how our family kind of interacted with each other. But I did my first self-development seminar in 2013 and it blew my mind. I had no idea self-development existed.
Yeah.
I didn't know that you could grow. My first experience, I remember I was working at this like horrible call center job. I was miserable. I was like crying on my lunch break every day. And I used to make this joke about being handcuffed to my desk. And then I go to this thing and I was like, oh my gosh, I actually don't have to work here. And it was the most bizarre experience because I thought like I would only ever be able to make minimum wage, or I wasn't making minimum wage then, but just like not very much. And that was really what changed everything for me personally. Like my parents, for them, the most success they had is just a peaceful, calm life, like being homeowners, working their full-time jobs, and that's it. Just being at peace, like gardening, remodeling their home. They're so content with their lives just being like that. Me, I dream for like bigger things. But I had a much different experience. Like we moved to Florida when I was pretty young. I was just in middle school. So I had all my life here away from that environment. But the like mental chains still existed there because there was a lot of things that people would say about, you know, like poverty in Spanish, they would say, así es la vida de pobre. Like that's the life of a poor man. And it was just this experience that life is going to be what it is. You're kind of always going to, you know, aim low because that's what's available to us. And that just came from the experience, you know, that my parents had. So they taught me how to be safe, how to play it safe and how to play small, because that when you come from the incarceration community, being under the radar, like staying off of everybody's radar is the best thing that you can do for your safety and survival.
So powerful. But I love how you kind of was like, you know, for me, that comes from, you know, just the inherited conversations. It's the inherited, you know, ways of being. Nothing wrong, right? It's just the way it is. And, you know, that, you know, life changed for you when you took your personal growth and development in 2013. You were able to be like, okay, so these are conversations that have been, you know, passed down to me. And we could see that cycle of all of that. And there are other ways. You know, there are so many unlimited, you know, ways of being that you can be. And that's where you started making, you know, the shift for you, which I think is pretty extraordinary. And now you're very committed to the women, right?
Yeah.
Who are previously incorporated. What are you doing? Are you doing any work right now with women? Are you just speaking about it? Is your podcast? Like, why don't you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I've done a speaking event with this organization from where I'm from, and somebody invited me to speak, and there were, you know, formerly incarcerated people, indirectly impacted people, and just talking about self-love. I think that when women come out of incarceration, depending on when they went in or their life experience before they got in there, like the type of lives they led, you know, they usually have kids, right? And they come out and they want to be good mothers and they really want to just like move forward with their lives. And there's this like, do they even know how to love their children, how to love themselves, how to be in healthier relationships so that when they do move forward in their lives, they aren't just recommitting to circumstances that are like reminiscent of their childhood and the bad environments that they saw, and knowing how much they do love their kids, but what tools do they have available to them? So that's a really important community to me. I'll always do work for that community and like, you know, free webinars and things that they can attend. I'm doing my podcast has been my big focus right now. It fits in between time between, you know, grad school and work. So that one, I'm planning out season 2. I just found an episode today, so I posted that. And then going forward, I've got more workshops that I'll be developing, group coaching, that type of thing. And then later on, like doing a big event, like inviting people in person to come in and share in that energy and do some healing work and, how to be well and talk nerdy, sciencey, self-love stuff.
Nice. Yeah, self-love is your jam. And, definitely want to connect you with someone who is doing their second virtual self-love conference for women of color. And I was part of that. Yeah. So I'll introduce you to her, and that'll be amazing. I think you'd be fantastic with that. So we've got like 15 minutes left. I know that, like I said, some people may be watching. We've been kind of not as raw. We got into our kids a little bit. We talked about, the tools that we're using with them. But what do you really want to be like vulnerable about right now, and really that you want to share from your whole heart, like that commitment, that stand that really matters to you, that we can just kind of, spend a few minutes on and just kind of see who else might resonate with what is happening. I know you shared a bunch of things, with me, but I'm just interested in what you kind of want to say right now, because this is the platform. I know this is the platform to be able to kind of spread some new messages, some new conversations, get some people to think about some things. Maybe it resonates, maybe it doesn't, but we're both very committed with our whole heart to start shifting the conversations and kind of turning what we're used to, kind of upside down on its head.
Yeah. So my self-love journey started. So the life that I was living at some point was so sad, so depressing, so miserable that when I got diagnosed with breast cancer, I actually felt relieved, because that became my permission to finally start choosing myself and putting myself first. Mm-hmm. It was the first time that I said, you know what, I've taken on responsibilities that I don't want to. I was living my life completely as a doormat. I lived a life where I never spoke up for myself. And that silence of not setting boundaries, of not walking away from bad situations was suffocating me. And I got this diagnosis, and it was like, I was just like, I felt like this weight lift off of me, where I knew that going forward, I was like, whatever life I have left, it is going to be amazing. And I didn't set out even to go on a self-love journey. I was just trying to heal. And, I have this these compulsive learning surges where I'll just digest everything I can. So I started reading everything. I went through conventional and holistic. Like, I did both of those things 100%. I went holistic first, and I learned about healing everything. I healed my heart. I learned forgiveness work, gratitude work. And then I had picked up something about, self-love, and it was about a woman's cancer journey. And she had this, miraculous cancer healing journey. And she talked about self-love being the key to being well. And at the time I was like, what does that mean? I'm looking up hashtags, and I'm seeing people with their cup of coffee, watching the sunrise. And I was like, this is not enough. I need a methodical approach. I need proof. I need something, that a checklist that's going to tell me that if I have done these things, that means I now love myself. I was like, what does it feel like? What does it look like? I didn't get it, because they were saying, treat yourself, care for yourself, take a bath. And I remember laying in the bathtub, and I was like, is this self-love? I was so
right
through the work, right? One day there was this experience, and it was, the same way we have any type of emotion that's like an extreme emotion. There was this sensation of being propelled into joy. There was a sort of final stone that was lifted off of me of my past. I left no stone unturned, and the weight of everything. I had forgiven everyone, because I was like, if I'm going to meet my maker, I'm not going to leave earth until I've forgiven everyone for anything they've done. I've forgiven myself. And all of a sudden, when you release the last thing, you feel this lightness, this expansion, this glorious, beautiful, magnificent feeling, and there's nothing like it on earth. Like, I partied all my 20s. I've, gone out a lot. I've traveled the world. There's nothing like the feeling of loving yourself so much that no matter what happens, no matter how horrible it is, no matter how intense or sad, you wouldn't change any of it, because if you did, you might not get the chance to be the exact person that you are today. And that person being so amazing on good days, on bad days, when you're yelling, when you're screaming, crying, when you're joyous, when you're fun to be around, and loving every version of you. That is my purpose, is to teach people how to do that, to help them understand, like, what does it feel like? And I'm a poet, I'm a writer, and so I think that I use some of that like prose and some of that language to describe it. I combine it with science, and I'm the person who's like, I'll read the book so you don't have to. I write, the biology of belief and psychocybernetics and all these things, and I bring that together. I create these step-by-step processes, and I'm like, here are the formulas. There's a formula for joy. And I build pyramids of what's your commitment to healing. If you are committed to 10 seconds of healing, scroll through Instagram. If you're committed to a lifetime of healing, do forgiveness work. And there's all the tiers, in between. And so that's what my mission is, my purpose. The business that I'm building is taking people through, even season 2 of my podcast. It's very experimental, because I have some theories about, if I take people through a certain series of conversations, what's going to happen at the end of that episode. And I'm theorizing that even from home, in your car, you're going to have the experience of, what? I think I wouldn't change anything. I think that even today on this bad day, in these circumstances, I would still get to choose me again.
I love it. I love it. And that's why when we spoke yesterday, because that is my stand, so that each and every human being, doesn't suffer under, no matter what they're dealing with. At the end of the day, we are going to be dealing with life. Life is going to throw us stuff, from a disease, right, of cancer, death, all of those type of things, incarceration, all different versions, right? Heartbreak, disappointment, and joy. And what would that look like with all of those feelings and emotions that many of us are so not really truly deeply connected? We think we're connected to them because they'll say, you don't understand, Regina, I'm really pissed off. I'm really, really mad. Or you don't understand, I'm completely anxious. I'm so all of that. But when you can be connected to all of that and know that you are still extraordinary, that you are still the most loving, amazing person, period, on the planet, each individual, while feeling again, I knew I was having, reconnected of this whatever kind of day, but it didn't take me out, right? Prior to all of this work, there would be no way I'd be on this conversation with you right now. I wouldn't have set up anything. I would have canceled. There wouldn't have even been, put it to you that way. There just wouldn't have been. But no matter what that is, there's something, like you said, bigger. And to have people really see, really connect to who they are, not the machine up here, not the circumstances around them, but to really get here I am with a cancer thriver. I'm out to shift that survivor to thriver. Cancer doesn't define me. This breakup doesn't define me. This addiction doesn't define me. This incarceration doesn't define me. Whatever that is doesn't define me. To really tap into who you are, and to have those tools to be able to get to inside of an experience, be able to tap in and really, if you do the work, can feel that joy. There's so much for me that, there's so much more to delve into. We've got a few minutes left, and And it just like kind of reminds me, because like I said, I have a lot of people hurting right now. Tons of death, right? You know, from horrible situations that are happening in our world, to people dying, to people being murdered, all of those, you know, type of things. And it's like, can you still find like that love for self and human beings? Because when you're in a certain, you know, circumstance and that mind really gets going, you can, like you said, pull yourself away. You've been there in this depression. Like, I can't know you any other way. I only know Janice, who I know, right? Like, so when I hear you speak, it's like I can't even see that. And I know that people who know me from a really long time know you know, my husband and I have been together for 13 years, and we met in a transformational life development course. So it's so interesting for him to go through all these spaces with me. And my best friend from 45 years was here for my birthday weekend. And I'm no different, right? Who I was 45 years ago to now, and I am, right? So like, he'll see the dramatic or see the whatever, and you know, they'll have, and I can hear them like when they're having coffee outside, and she's like, "Oh, you have no idea. Like, you met her, and she's, you know, now she can manage and create and, you know, and experience and have those conversations and not run away or not like, I know, like, let me tell you, I can cut you with words in like a second, you know, that's those things. And it's so not like, I mean, I can be mad and I can be angry and we argue and we, you know, but it's not like he knows that little unhealed child. I know, you know, sometimes I'm blind for a second and she rises and then he just loves her. And then I get to love her. And then we get to have this conversation. So, you know, it's just funny to watch people's perspectives, because I'm like, oh man, 15 years ago, maybe not. Like, I'm like, I am so, like, I think you saw it that weekend when they were like, you know, I get permission to yell and be pissed off. And he was like, what? You know, it's like, no. But it's done in a way that really is like our commitment. So, and I know relationship is that next journey for you. You know, I know that, you know, Janice is on that, you know, continuing self and, you know, development. It's a commitment that we both have, personal and professional. I feel like no matter what one you go to, we just are in that same herd together. You know, sure, it was business, but it was so deep personally. It's the type of coaching. It's what the coach I have now as well. You know, sure, she's an amazing business coach, but like, you get your life out of it, right? Because there's not box business, box personal. It's a creation, you know, it's all of it. So I know that that's your next journey for yourself, you know, healing and doing that forgiveness, and you have all that. And now you're in the exploration and inquiry of it. So we're excited to take Janice on our journey of relationship. And yeah, so we've got like a minute. No, we got like, yeah, just about 2 minutes left. So what do you want to say to everybody? What do you want to leave them with? A thought, an inquiry, whatever that is.
I just want to, like, you know, I think that time is the most valuable commodity that we all have. So I'm grateful for your listening, for, you know, you being in this space. I finish off all my podcast episodes with, and I hope all of your dreams come true. And I mean that, where if you come across any of my work, if we ever have interactions with one another, that if you have never been around peace or love and joy, that when you are in my presence, that is what you will experience with me. So I'm just so grateful for you, Regina. Like, this is wonderful. I enjoyed the conversation with you at the event, and listening to you now. I think that your community is beautiful and what you're up to is really grand. So thank you for letting me be a part of this. It's just like such a dope conversation.
Yeah, you know, one of the things is I've always, guys know, I always say it takes a village. Now inside of Red Elephant, it takes a herd. You know, if we go back to really, like, you know, villages, they were together. And so, you know, my community is your community. You have this, you know, you say, for anybody who is in our presence, we want you to be seen, heard, valued, acknowledged, and really feel your deep own love. Like that's what we are committed to. And so I'm excited to continue to expand our relationship, see how we can partner up and collaborate and share resources, because this is, to me, the most important part of the work, starting with our women into our children, because they're our future, man. And that's it. So here we are at the end, guys. On behalf of Janice Cruz and Regina Rossi Lamoth, we thank you so much for joining us. Listen, whatever you hear, please comment. We are going to be following up with you. I know you got those emojis and those likes. I already see some of them. We're going to say, what did you like about it? What made you laugh? What gave you the thumbs up? Let's, dive into this conversation. This is bigger than Janice and I. This is a conversation for everybody. And we are talking to you two men because this is an opportunity for you guys to hear what we have to say from a woman's perspective. And we will be having other men on this, extraordinary, conversation as well. So thank you, Janice, for your time. You guys have seen how to reach her. Please reach out to her. Please reach out to us. We definitely are here for you. We want to make you know how awesome you truly are. So thanks, Janice, so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Great night.